Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, and it's a long one, so please bear with me, I'm going to show you all the fabric that we're going to use to create the structure for our Stitch the Season fabric journal. Now, the fabric journal is a beautiful fabric book. It will take a lot of work, but I think this time of year, well, this is a fun way to really showcase it for the traditional holiday. Some parts of the book are untraditional, and you can make the book as elegant as you want. You can stick with a single color and make it monotone or monochromatic, or you can go to town and have a lot of fun with all the different colors and lights of Christmas. I like a thick book filled with lots of goodies and treasures, maybe some notes, some fabric ornaments, some bells. I like all that in my book, but you can modify your book the way you like it. Because I like it so thick, I'll stitch the pages into the journal at the very end. For now, I'm going to show you the pages to create that fabric structure for the book, and then in subsequent videos, I'll release prompts showing you how I complete the prompt and giving you some techniques that you might want to add in your own. And you're totally welcome to modify any of the prompts or skip them all together and create your very own. The purpose of this book is to create a lovely keepsake that you enjoyed creating that really celebrates the season. There's a Facebook group that I hope you consider joining, where you can show your progress, your work, or any treasures you've found. Just something to enhance the experience for you. So let's get started creating our fabric book today. So now I cut my cover to size. It's 54.6 centimeters metric by 25.4 centimeters, or 21.5 inches long by 10 inches tall. Now you can see that inside here, I've already marked it with a heat erasable pen. It doesn't matter if you use a non-heat erasable pen because it's not going to show as long as it doesn't bleed through the fabric, because we're going to turn the ends in. But I created the book cover, the spine, the back of the book, the back cover, another spine, and then the flap. You can vary this by making the flap longer or leaving it out altogether. And if you just want to have your cover, spine, and cover, just leave an inch or so around that other side of the cover. But I created mine here, and I also made a template. Now I made a couple of different versions of the template because I know I'm going to be cutting lots of this fabric. I'm only going to be cutting one piece this size. So what I did was I took an old box, just because it was cardboard and I like tracing around cardboard. And so I cut it out to be 6 by 8 inches. This is going to be the finished size of my page, or 20.32 centimeters by 15.24 centimeters for the page. So I'm going to have the cover, and then I have the spine here, which is everything is the same length tall. And then I have 5 centimeter width or 2 inch width for the spine. So I trace around that, put my spine down, and I don't abut it exactly. I give just a little bit of space. Then I put down my page again and trace around that. Same thing, do the spine again, and then I add my flap. And I trace around this because this is the area that I'm going to press. I'm going to press all those lines with the iron, and we'll do that later because first I like to do the cutting. So I'm going to set these aside because I'll use them again. The next thing I want to do is cut my batting. So I have the measurements for the batting included, and they're the same measurements as for each of the templates that I already made with the cardboard. And as you can see, I cut them just a little bit shy of these measurements, just so that when I flip over the fabric, it'll sit nicely. So I used the cardboard to trace and cut those as well. And again, I went just shy of each of these. So now I have the beginning of my cover. I want to create the next layer, the layer that you're going to see when you open the book. So I chose to go with that same fabric, that gray fabric. You can use a different fabric if you'd like. First thing I wanted to do was create an extra piece of fabric, and that's going to reinforce one spine. And that's what we're going to attach all the pages to. So I have that fabric, I cut it, and again, I took my spine here and traced around it, and then just cut an inch or so around it because I'm going to press these inside later. So I keep this spare piece of fabric. I wanted to make sure I had enough fabric to go for this piece as well because I wanted it to coordinate. Then I cut additional fabric, and again I wanted one piece for the cover, so I traced around the cover and then traced around the fabric with a little seam allowance, and I like a nice sturdy seam allowance, so I have 1 inch here. And then I made another piece of fabric, and that's going to go on the other side. Now I'm showing it to you reversed because that's the way I drew on it, but ultimately it will go over my batting just like that, and this piece will go like that. And again, all these measurements are included in that download. And then I'll have that spine that I can reinforce over here. So I have 3 pieces of fabric for the inner liner of the cover. So I'll set these aside and I'll work on pressing them later. So I wanted to use this fabric for my pages. It's only going to peek through, you're not going to see all of it, but I just love this fabric. It's this red polka dot with a little cream background. It's a little off-white. So what I did was I made another template. I took some poster board and I cut each piece of poster board to 6 by 8 inches, and then I just taped it down the center. And there is a little gap here just so that I could fold it over nicely. Each page is going to have 2 pieces of this fabric, a right side and a wrong side. And so ultimately, when they're stitched together, we're only going to see the right side of the fabric. But we're making 4 pages, so you need 8 of these cut out. So I took my template that I made here, 6 by 8 inches, and I just traced around on all 8 of these pages, and then I cut around roughly 1 inch on all those sides. So one more thing to cut. We have our pages done, and now I'm already starting, and I've cut 8 squares of this fabric, and they're all 6 by 8. If you want to turn the seams on this, cut a border around the edge. But these are going to be what I'm going to use. So each page will be half of this fabric here. And all I'm going to do is use this to attach my slow stitching to. So I'll slow stitch to this. I could always slow stitch directly to this page, but I like to start off with these. These are my canvas. I might not use them for all 8 pages, but I did cut them so that they're ready to go. Now from here, I'm ready to press all my fabric. So I'm going to take the fabric one by one and press it. So I normally iron with this little travel iron. It just heats up quickly and it's great for my slow stitching projects. However, I need a workhorse for today because I'm going to be doing a lot of ironing. So I have just a completely all metal ruler and a hot iron here, standard iron. There's nothing special about this iron. It's just effective. So now when I iron these pieces, my lines will disappear. So I'll have to go over them again. But what I like to do is line up my ruler with the edges first. And I start with the short edges. I fold that fabric over. I just take a moment to make sure it lines up correctly. Fold it over, hold it in place, and I iron. I get a nice crisp seam this way. Let it cool for a moment, and then I have that nice edge. And then I'll just go over it one more time. You can use fusible tape if you want to hold it down. I don't see any need for that. I think I will ultimately trim off this little raggedy edge here, the selvage. And then I'll just flip this over and do that with another side. Press the side. And I'll do this with the entire piece. I like to start with the short edges first. You can pin these down as well. I usually feel that once I press it though, it stays in place pretty well. And then I'll do the top edge here. Now I like to mark the top of my pieces, so I always put a pin in the top of the piece. So for now, I'll just stick the pin here with the bulb at the top, just so that I know whichever is the top, the intended top of my work. I'm going to go back and retrace the cover, the spine, and whatnot, if any of those lines got worn off with the heat. So there, you can see some lines remain, and now I'll just take this pin and pin this down here. And this is just another indicator, which is the top of my piece. So from here, I'm going to take all my fabric, all my pieces that I took the time to mark, and I'm going to press them. For the spine, this is the reinforcing aspect of the spine. I'm just going to iron the top and the bottom. I'm not ironing the sides. That's not the purpose. But for everything else, I'm going to iron all 4 sides. So now that I have all of my fabric pressed, my pins ready to go, I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to work on just the pages that I'm working on for that particular prompt. I'm not going to do any work yet binding the book. That will come along as we go. So that's how I create the basic structure to my fabric book. It's a lot of work, but once you get past this point, then the fun begins, and we'll start that in our next video with the first prompt. I'm going to add a few more pockets to the book, but for now, this is the structure that I want to complete. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. And please consider becoming a paid member of my channel, where I share additional footage and behind-the-scenes work. Thanks for joining me today.